Persons with disabilities have, in times gone by and in many societies today, been treated as lesser human beings, being deprived of basic human dignity. In recent years, many countries and worldwide organizations have begun taking a stand for persons with disabilities. They do this by enacting laws and implementing policies that guarantee the inclusion, equal treatment, and accommodations for persons with disabilities. The following are examples of laws, policies, and acts that have been implemented and enacted to ensure that persons with disabilities are treated as dignified human beings. The UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, UNCRPD. This is an international treaty that promotes and protects the rights of persons with disabilities, marking a global shift from a charity or medical perspective to a human rights-based approach. This was adopted by the UN General Assembly on December 13, 2006, and it was opened for signatures on March 30, 2007. Signatories and parties. As of recent data, that is April to November 2024, the UNCRPD has achieved near universal acceptance, with 192 countries as signatories to this. Opportunities and benefits that exist. The Convention provides a legally binding framework to ensure equality and inclusion. There was a paradigm shift because it changed the view of disability from an individual medical deficit or an object of charity to a human rights issue that is caused by societal barriers. Legal force. This obligates state parties or signatories to this convention to develop national legislation and policies that guarantee rights in practice. Inclusive development. This integrates disability inclusion into international developmental goals such as Sustainable Development Goals and ensuring that persons with disabilities are participants in and beneficiaries of developmental efforts. We have social inclusion. This emphasizes the principle of nothing about us without us. What this is saying is that it requires states to consult with and involve persons with disabilities in the decision-making processes that affect them, rather than making them for them. Accessibility. This promotes and mandates accessibility in the physical environment, which includes transportation, information, and communication technology. Individual redress. The optional protocol allows individuals or groups to lodge complaints with the UN Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities if they believe their rights have been violated. As with everything, there are challenges. Despite its widespread ratification, implementation faces several challenges. 1. Attitude and environmental barriers. There are deeply ingrained negative attitudes and stigma as well as discrimination that surround persons with disabilities. This stereotype remains a major obstacle to full inclusion in many societies. The stereotype that is that persons with disabilities are not equal or they are lesser than persons without these disabilities. There is a policy to practice gap. Many countries have robust legislation on paper, but they have failed to actually implement these. And this usually happens because of ineffective administrative infrastructure and the political will to implement policies effectively. There is also the issue of resource constraints. There's inadequate human and financial resources which often hinder the development of and implementation of necessary support services and infrastructure for persons with disabilities. Another challenge is the inept data collection. There is very little reliable and comparable data and statistics on persons with disabilities. This makes it difficult to formulate effective evidence-based policies and monitor progress. The historical significance of this act. It is actually the first legally binding international human rights agreement that deals specifically with the rights of persons with disabilities. These persons are now seen as equal to everyone with fundamental human rights and not just charity cases. The American Disabilities Act. This act was signed into law by President George H.W. Bush on July 26, 1990. It is a landmark civil rights law because it prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities in all areas of public life. The signatories to this we had the President George H.W. Bush, and at the signing he had key advocates and members of Congress, including Kevin Kemp, who was the chairman of the EEOC, Justin Dart, the chairman of the President's Committee on Employment of People with Disabilities, Reverend Harold Wilk, and Swift Perino, who was the chairperson of the National Council on Disability. There were also key congressional sponsors who included Senator Tom Harkin and Representative Tony Coelho. The benefits and opportunities of this act. The ADA has fostered greater inclusion and accessibility in American society. This includes the state and local government services, public transportation, and public accommodations. The physical access that this law grants, it led to significant improvement in physical access, such as implementation of ramps, curb cuts, automatic door openers, and accessible restrooms in public buildings and commercial facilities. Employment. This act promotes equal employment opportunity in the workplace by requiring employers to provide reasonable accommodations to qualified individuals with disability. This has led to increased employment rates and economic self-sufficiency for persons with disabilities. Communication. This required telecommunications companies to provide a national system of relay services for individuals with hearing or speech impairments. Increased awareness. This has heightened public sensitivity and awareness to the challenges faced by people with disabilities. In doing so, it fostered greater respect and acceptance in public environments. As again, challenges. Despite its success, the ADA continues to face challenges as it relates to implementation, enforcement, and the scope of implementation. Enforcement of the law, it can be uneven because in urban and rural areas there are differences in resources, and funding. The cost of compliance with small businesses and local government areas, these businesses sometimes face significant economic burden in meeting the accessibility requirements. For example, making modifications to a bathroom for disabled persons at a small business can seem quite financially strenuous on a small business. The interpretation of laws. The primary enforcement mechanism often relies on individual lawsuits that lead to concerns about things like drive-by litigation and disagreements over the interpretation of the law. So, different persons may have varying interpretation of the laws even in the legal body or the legal framework. The scope of coverage. There are ongoing debates and legal challenges regarding the application of the ADA to new areas such as digital and website accessibility and whether it adequately addresses the needs of people with mental and cognitive disabilities compared to physical ones. The historic significance of this is that the Americans with Disability Act of 1990 is a law that provides comprehensive civil rights protections to individuals with disability. Where there were civil rights laws, there were no specific laws catering to persons with disabilities, but this law has now catered for these persons. The National Council for Persons with Disability NCPD in Guyana. This is governed by the Persons with Disabilities Act of 2010, which aims to protect the rights of individuals with disabilities. Some of the key opportunities include the promotion of inclusion and rights enforcement. Signatories to this establishment and related international treaties are the government bodies like the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the Guyana Human Rights Association. We have opportunities for these persons. The protection of their rights. Persons with Disabilities Act 2010, it protects the rights of people with disabilities, which is in accordance with the principles of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. There is also inclusion. The Act and the strategy it informs, these provide a framework for creating a more inclusive society for people with disabilities in Guyana. Empowerment. The NCPD aims to shift the perspective from viewing people with disabilities as objects of charity, once more, to viewing them as rights holders, persons with rights who are capable of making decisions for themselves and being able to fully participate in society. Challenges. Implementation. Successfully implementing the Act and various strategies across all government sectors and society remain a significant challenge. Resource allocation. Adequate funding and resources to meet the needs of persons with disabilities across various areas like education, health, and employment is a persistent challenge. We also have things like negative cultural attitudes. In Guyana, persons with disabilities are often shunned or looked down upon. Overcoming societal stigma and raising public awareness about the rights and abilities of persons with disabilities continues to be an ongoing effort. The signatories and the key actors, these persons are the National Council for Persons with Disability, the government ministries like the Ministry of Public Health, Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Social Protection, Foreign Affairs, Department of Labor, and the Guyana non-governmental organization, the Guyana Human Rights Association. Historical significance of this is that this act addresses the need for implementation and protection of rights of persons with disabilities. In a country where culturally persons with disabilities are shunned and treated as though they are of very little significance, this act has really addressed an existing need. The National Policy on Persons with Disabilities, Barbados. This is a 7-year plan the Barbados government has from 2023 to 2030 that is focused on promoting and protecting the rights of persons with disabilities. Key benefits include advancements in accessibility, health, and technology, while challenges include addressing climate change impacts and ongoing stigma. The policy was approved on September 21, 2023, and a version was laid in Parliament in October 2024. Opportunities. These opportunities they have are basically acknowledging how technological advancements can break down barriers and create new opportunities for persons with disabilities. It recognizes and seeks to address how climate change can negatively affect the welfare of persons with disabilities. Some of the benefits are improved quality of life, as the policy aims to promote, advance, and protect full human rights of persons with disability through a whole of government approach, not just one government agency or one government ministry, but an entire government approach. It addresses the key issues and that the policy is designed to address a cross-section of issues including accessibility, health, and education for members of society with disabilities. The challenges. Climate change impact. The policy identifies climate change as a challenge and negatively affects the welfare of persons with disabilities. We have stigma and prejudice, as there is a historical challenge of stigma and prejudice that can lead to psychological stress and negative self-image for persons with disabilities. Resources. Limited resources. The policy is subject to the availability of resources and government obligations in their allocation. The signatories to this. The policy does not list any specific signatories specific signatories, but it is led by the Barbadian government. And the Barbadian government has also signed on to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So this was approved by the Cabinet on September 21, 2023. The historic significance of this. This policy marked a shift in the way persons with disabilities were treated in Barbados, as it now ensures more civil rights, social security benefits, inclusivity, and empowerment for persons with disabilities. This new approach takes on a human rights phase that harmonizes with the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We now move on to the final one we'll be looking at today. This is the 2025 National Policy on Persons with Disabilities in Zambia. It was approved on February 11, 2025, and is designed to address gaps in disability inclusion such as stigma and lack of coordination by providing a strategic framework for equality and participation. Opportunities include a more inclusive society and better access to education, health, and employment, with implementation supported by a new plan and guidelines. The opportunities available is that there is a comprehensive framework that would improve the socio-economic development for persons with disabilities, enhance access to quality education, health and employment, inclusion, full participation in society, as well as promotion of equality, equity, social justice, and human dignity. Some more benefits: more inclusive social protection system, clear guidance for all stakeholders on disability matters, and addressing issues or challenges like stigma, communication barriers, and uncoordinated data gathering. Some of these challenges, as with everyone else, include inadequate coordination of disability-related matters among institutions, ongoing inclusion challenges leading to limited access to services. We have limited resources, insufficient budgetary support for the policy's implementation, and again, uncoordinated data gathering and weak linkages among service providers. The signatories to this are the Government of Zambia, the Government of Zambia, which includes the Ministry of Community Development and Social Services. We have the Zambia Agency for Persons with Disabilities, ZAPD, and the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, as a collaborator. Now, the historical significance for this is that the policy replaces the 2015 National Policy on Disability because the old policy failed to meet international standards like the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, to which Zambia is a signatory. So, these organizations are all organizations focused on promoting and enforcing the rights of persons with disabilities, as these persons are humans and they all have the same rights that we do have. So these organizations play an important role in ensuring that these persons are treated with human dignity. Thank you.